much as $4,000 per year. But Vice President Kamala Harris's plan would help middle-class families deal with rising costs. In her first 100 days, Kamala Harris would pass a ban on price gouging at the grocery store. And as Vice President, she worked to cap the cost of many prescription drugs, including insulin, saving many families thousands of dollars per year. On the economy,
30
the
seconds.
choice is clear. Vote Kamala Harris for president.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with the outstanding Mr. Aaron Zommer is on the board. It is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite, and it is... Whoa, the camel's in a cave. How about that? Very nice. 6 past the hour of 12 noon, a beautiful day here in Madison. And I bet it is around the state as well. We head up to beautiful Lake Wissota on the banks thereof. He is the host of Up North News Radio every morning from 6 until 8. Mr. Pat Kreitlow, how the heck are you?
Good afternoon, Mr. Allbaugh. I am fine, thank you.
Wonderful.
It is a beautiful day up here. I have a window here in the palatial Lake Wissota studios that faces due south. And as you know, as the seasons get closer to winter, the sun is a little lower in the sky as we go on.
Right.
So we're now at the time where the sun, instead of being way up above the window, is now starting to shine in through the top of the window, which is why I appear to be almost a silhouette compared to the wall
But
back
there's some
here.
beautiful backlighting back there.
The back is lit really fine, but I'm
Right.
I'm the star, not the damn wall over here.
I think
I'm
your
supposed to
hair
be
looks
lit.
really nice, Pat.
My hair always
TV
looks really
hair.
nice, Trig V, and I appreciate that.
Joining us
Look,
from our
for
nation's
folks
capital.
watching on the screen right now, one of these things is not like the others. We're playing a little Sesame Street game right here. So
One of these men have hair. And it's Pat Kreitlow.
Well, Pat's always had TV hair. I mean,
from
you
the
go
very
back
beginning,
from
daycare,
From,
yeah.
probably.
Pre-K, I was inspired by Bob Barker's early days, and I've had game show host hair ever since.
You'd be very good at The Price is Right, I bet.
I have a story about that, actually.
Do you really?
Yes.
All right, well, first of all, let's introduce him
introduce the
from
people.
Trigby Olson, the senior advisor at the Lincoln Project, joins us from our nation's capital. Great to have Trigby along today as well. As it turns out, we have a lot of time. We had a special guest, but they canceled. So
How special can they be?
Well, I mean, no more special than you, Pat Kreitlow. But so, give us. This is fantastic, by the way. A Price is Right story. Let's go ahead.
It's a story about the game show here. Look, when I first got elected to the state senate, all people knew about me was that I'd been a TV anchor. Nobody knew prior to my running, my political affiliations. I didn't really know the other members of the Senate Democratic Caucus. And you guys might recall that in 2007, the legislative Democrats passed a little thing called Healthy Wisconsin. Yes. The effort to overhaul healthcare, even though we only controlled one chamber, did not control the assembly. I'm not going to comment on that part of it. All I'm going to say is there were meetings behind the scenes to put this all together, and everybody had like a different role. You're going to study this. You're going to study this. You're going to study and do a presentation on this. And then one of the people in charge turns to me and says, "Now we'd kind of like you to, kind of be the moderator of the whole thing, basically the MC." And I recall not storming out of the room, but kind of grumbling. It's like, they've got all these people studying all these weighty topics, and they want me to be the damn game show host. I'm like, that's all I'm good for here is game show host.
There's so much more to Pat Kreitlow than just being an MC.
It turns out, no, that's really all I can do is I can yodel,
Really?
No, I can
Oh, I thought
politically.
maybe-
I can gripe about
politically.
this, that, and the other thing. That's really all I'm good for.
Well, you're good for a lot more. Again, people can hear you every morning 6 until 8 on Up North News Radio. Gentlemen, we are now under 2 weeks away from voting here in the state of, well, at least election day, we should put it that way.
Yeah.
People can start voting in person as of yesterday. Early voting started, Pat. Any news from the northern parts of Wisconsin, the greater Chippewa Valley, on whether people were making their way there?
The one thing that I do recall seeing are some photos taken by Trish Zunker showing the line stretching through Wausau City Hall or the courthouse, I forget which, and then out the door into the sidewalk. And of course, we've seen photos and video from other places around Wisconsin as well. I'm sure the ones in Wausau were like, well, we don't know what the mayor's going to do next, so we'd better make sure our vote counts. So let's go cast it while we can. And as for me, I did my absentee ballot, and I took it up to my town hall drop box and popped it on in there because, again, it was a way of saying drop boxes are good and essential, and we should use them. So my vote has been cast. How about you? Do you have your little I voted sticker yet?
Well, I have several on my. Every time I get one, I try to remember to put it on my bulletin board by my desk. So I have many, but not one from this. Not one from this election. But yes, I'm going to do it either today or tomorrow. I'm going to vote early in person at my local clerk's office here in Madison, because next week Trigby and I are on the road around Wisconsin, and you never know what's going to happen on election day. So, like you, I want to make sure I get my vote in, my ballot in. And the cool thing we had on last week or week before, former Republican Wisconsin Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen, along with former Democratic Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, making a bipartisan appearance to tell people, look, elections in Wisconsin are free, fair, and accurate. Everyone should have faith as these numbers roll in under 2 weeks that
Right.
our votes are being counted.
Yeah, and that includes, the overseas ballots. Trigby knows he's cast his ballot from, such hot spots as Azerbaijan and Dubai and wherever else this little globetrotter goes. Yeah.
Lithuania, though.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, very good. How about it, Trigby? Your thoughts. I know you do a lot of work, in terms of the Lincoln Institute for Democracy and these types of things. Any trepidation on voting, not just in Wisconsin, but nationally? What are you seeing here in terms of efforts to suppress votes in this election?
My concerns about the election really are less about the actual voting process. I don't think that's where things are likely to get bumpy in the upcoming election. I think I do worry about that we could see a January 6th style event as it relates to counting processes, particularly in places where there's large enough amounts of ballots processed that it could cloud the outcome. I think that might be a bigger exposure, but yeah, I don't think the actual process. The thing people have to recognize about the state of Wisconsin, Pat, I don't know if you or Todd have ever been involved in a recount, but
I have.
One of the first races I ran in Wisconsin years and years and years ago ended up in a recount. So then once you're trained for a recount, every time there's a recount, somebody knocks on your door, right?
Sure.
And the thing that people have to understand about Wisconsin is, or any state where they use optical scanners, right? They are so accurate that the outcome doesn't change. And I believe, it's like 90% of Wisconsin's optical scanners. The state of Wisconsin, you might have been in the legislature when they did this. They made a conscientious decision that everyone should have optical scanners so you don't have the issue. So, that process is smooth.
Machines?
Yeah, right.
I think we should insist on a hand count for every
Technology
ballot, every
and
time.
science?
I don't want any of that technology stuff. I mean, come on, please.
No, the Venezuelans might hack it, right? Like that literally is
and
why
and
they
that's
make
where-
those narratives up.
Right, and that's where I would point folks to if you head over to the Up North News Facebook page. We've got several video clips there from an election clerk in Eau Claire, and she does such a good job of breaking down. Here's how we secure the ballots. Here's how the counting process works. You ask her about basically rigging, and they continually start to hold simulations, little tabletop exercises on how would you get it. And she basically is like, we never get to the end of one of these because there isn't a way for a person to cast a second ballot, much less, the 20,000 that you would need to cast to somehow throw an election. And honestly, I can't believe we're still talking about this 4 years later, because it is such a ridiculous notion. And yet so many people buy into it because they want to buy into it, not because of anything that they've actually seen or experienced.
Right.
Trigby, I don't think we should. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say this too. I tend to be an election day voter, in large part because I like to walk over with my kids and I like to talk about, for example, their grandparents on mom's side who lived in most of their lives under Soviet communism, and they would go and cast votes that didn't mean anything because everybody would be required, if you didn't want to go to Siberia, to cast a vote. That's a little bit of an overstatement, but basically, like, it was a requirement. Like, you had to go and vote, and you had one candidate to vote for. And I always like to talk to them and remind them about that, because voting is a privilege, regardless of who you're going to vote for. I think one of the candidates running in this race is an absolute disaster and an anathema to democracy. But the reality is, the fact that people have that right to go and vote when far too many people around the world do not have that right. Everyone should cherish it and not demean it and not disparage it. And quite frankly, for me, as somebody who's worked with people around the world who don't have that right and don't have the right to have their votes accurately counted, it's just so disgusting that you have these people who are attacking that process because they don't understand how lucky they are.
Right.
And
Pat,
quite frankly, we as a country and we as a generation, I hate to say this, Pat, but I've been thinking, and Todd, you're the same generation. I have been thinking about Generation X, our generation. And if we don't get our act together, we're going to turn out to be the worst generation in the history of America.
Well,
that's
that happy
uplifting.
note.
Yeah, that's happy note. No, you're
So
right,
start
you're right.
appreciating what you have, and that starts with the fact that you can go and vote early, that you get to cast a ballot, and that ballot will be accurately counted and determine the outcome of the election. And anybody who tries to tell you otherwise, or anybody who tries to call into question that, should be somebody that is not a friend of all those values and all those benefits that you get from living in a place where you do get to cast a ballot.
Yeah. Pat, 1 minute left.
Just go, people. Just go. There's just, I mean, we're gonna be hectoring people until 8 p.m. on November 5th, and that's fine. It's a big country. It's a big state. There's millions of us in here, and it just makes things so much easier because you know that there's going to be lines there, and so if you have any kind of opportunity to skip that line, as my wife did yesterday, she got to the town hall with about 4 people in line ahead of her, not 40. And so when you have that opportunity, especially an election like this, just go for just do it. Just do it, as the shoe says.
Question off the text line for Trigby. Foreign Affairs. We'll get his opinion on that. And also, what do Pat and Trigby have to say about the new GOP high sign being Vita Zane? Back after this on the Civic Media Radio Network.
It's technically Zig Heil.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't going to say it. But yeah.
Well,
just so you're ready, Trigby, the question from Steve in Milwaukee is, what does Trigby have to say about Korean troops in Russia? What's next?
yeah. It's not a great sign.
No. And we got Susan and McFarland calling in. Oh, Patrick.
How about those Packers, Patrick?
That was a fun game to be at. That was a nice one.
You were a lucky man. I saw that on Facebook.
I know. I'm not ever going to one again.
How was your heart? How was your
weather-
heart when the kicker went walking out for a walk off?
You kind of like, okay, this is out of my hands. We're just going to see where this goes. Right. But it's also indicative of how old Dana Walks and I have become. We were up at the top of the concourse level of the section, and we watched the kick, and we went, yeah, and a couple of high fives, and within 8 seconds, we were out like a cannon heading for the exits because we didn't want to get caught in traffic. So we saw the kick, we said, hooray, and we were jingling the car keys and getting out of Dodge.
That's great.
And you got to have a good conversation on the way out rather than we lost on an effing missed kick.
Yeah, right.
Right.
It's one of my favorite stories with the first time I took my daughter Ula to
10
Lambeau
seconds.
Field.
Here we go.
Boom.
The sun does not come up as early as it used to, but always an early riser to get you up and going from 6 until 8. Pat Kreitlow with that great music there. Up North News Radio across Civic Media every morning. We appreciate him being here along with Trygve Olson from our nation's capital, now a senior advisor at the Lincoln Project. Gentlemen, I want to get your quick take because we've got a text to get to and a phone call, but I don't want to leave our audience hanging there. My reference was new reporting by The Atlantic and also the New York Times that former decorated 4-star General John Kelly, one-time chief of staff to Donald Trump, has said now on the record that Donald Trump, when he was president, told Kelly that he admired Hitler's generals and wished he had generals like Adolf Hitler. Pat Kreitlow?
Well, it's not good, but, and gosh, I don't mean to give fuel to the MAGA folks out there. But I don't know the date that he said that. Let's say today it's October 23rd. So let's say that Trump said this to him on October 23rd, 2019. Do you know when you should have told that story? October 24th of 2019, not 5 years later. Now, if you were holding it for maximum effect, well, maybe it'll work. Good luck to you. But I'm just seeing too much of this withholding of information until the right reporter asks you or until you've got the advance for a book deal or something like that. So look, I know I'm getting away from the news itself, but the timing in my view doesn't really work in its advantage.
Not trying to defend him, but just what he said on the record is that he felt as a former military person, they're not supposed to get deep into these political things. And I think now this is Todd's speculation that perhaps he thought this was going to work itself out. Now that he's seeing it's close, he feels it's his duty to come forward now. That was his reason, not defending it, just putting it out there. That's what he said.
I get
Trygve?
it. I get it.
I actually think that's a good thing too, that our military, that it's that ingrained in them. I do think though, one of the things that as the country adapts to an environment where we have far more extremism and radicalization in our politics and where someone like Donald Trump can rise, whether it's our institutions need to reacclimate themselves. And that includes, higher education. Our elite schools of journalism need to do a different job of educating reporters about how you cover these kinds of things. One of the things, I'll be that guy. I was asked at one point to go up and do a New York Times editorial board just off the record to talk about democracy and how they fail. And I was talking to them about how you cover these things. And what became readily apparent to me is of all the people that they had invited to be on this Zoom, the two people who got it were ones that had been bureau chief in China and in Moscow, where they had seen this stuff up close. The rest of them did. The political ones wanted to cover it like the game they knew, not the game we're in. So, and I think that's true with the military too, right? Like it's good that our military's senior brass doesn't want to get in the middle of politics. It's good now that people like General Milley and General Kelly are speaking out. Do I wish that they would speak out more forcefully and more publicly even, yes. Should they have done it earlier? Probably. But
here's what former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, former Republican who has now endorsed Kamala Harris, she was in Wisconsin again this week with the vice president campaigning. She says, quote, on Twitter today, if your response to General John Kelly, Gold Star father and Trump White House chief of staff, confirming that Trump praised Hitler and called members of our military, quote, suckers and losers, is to defend Trump, you need to look yourself in the mirror and realize your dishonor will live forever, unquote. Let's go to the phone line. Susan in McFarland. Susan, thanks for listening. What do you got? Something on voting. Go ahead.
Hello?
Susan, you're on the air. Quickly, if you could, please, Susan. Thanks for calling.
Yes, I'll be as quick as I can. My first point was that Alexei Navalny's book came out yesterday, and it's his memoir, and I think what Yulia had to say resonated with me as the fact that, he spent his adult life trying to make a change in Russia, and he paid the ultimate price for it. And I think that we've had a lot of people in our history that also have paid the ultimate price for it. And it's important my one point is it's important for us to read so we understand more. And the other thing, and this is a question for you, your group, do you think that we've been asleep at the wheel for the last 15 years or so? And that's my feeling, is that we've all been asleep at the wheel before Trump came to the forefront because we felt things were comfortable and cozy. That's my ask. And I'd like to hear a response from your group. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Susan. We appreciate you listening down there in the beautiful municipality of McFarland. A minute each. Trigby, then Pat Kreitlow.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how, Susan sounds younger than Pat and I because we're old. But the reality is when the Cold War ended, our generation of people who are adults now and almost 60, so from the age of 30 to 60, spent their adult lives in a world that was in America that was very different from what some previous generations had done. It was one of unprecedented peace and prosperity globally. I think, to Susan's point, the boys who ran off boats on the beaches of Normandy didn't have that option, or the people who held their best friends at Guadalcanal or in Vietnam had a little bit different perspective on the world and had seen some things that, quite frankly, shaped their understanding that it isn't always about aspiring to be. I want to be in politics. I want to be governor of the state of Wisconsin when I'm at Badger Boys State. They weren't afforded that. What they set out was, I want to do things. And now we're faced with something where people need to go out and do something, and that's vote for their democracy and not put somebody who thinks Hitler did good things in office.
Pat Kreitlow.
And as far as the Navalny book, I read a few excerpts this morning, and I'm looking forward to getting some of the rest of it as a reminder that there are still people out there who will make those kinds of ultimate sacrifices to try to give the next generations the sense of freedom that too many of us take for granted. And yeah, that's our main sin here, is taking for granted, thinking, oh, what happened in Hungary could never happen here. What happened with Duterte in the Philippines could never happen here. And many more of us have now learned, yeah, actually it can, but there's still so many others who think this is just some kind of a phase or something, and I hope they get this wake-up call before November 5th rather than after January 20th.
One way to head it off, be a voter. Haven't planned to be a voter. Pat Kreitlow, he has already been a voter. You can listen to him every morning, 6 until 8. Thank you, Pat. We appreciate you out there in beautiful Lake Wissota.
You bet. See you guys.
We'll see you on the road next week. Stay tuned.
See you next week.
Trigby Olson and I back after this on Civic Media.
The boys on the bus next week.
The boys on the
Hopefully we're in a bus.
It'd be a bus or a camel, one or the other.
We might be on a wagon train.
I was going to say a hay wagon or, maybe a combine. I don't know. Whatever gets the job done.
We're competing with high school football, Pat. That's not easy.
I see. Maybe there's a Partridge Family looking bus out there that you guys can get.
That's what we
need. VW wagon.
I'll be the Reuben Kincaid in the back, just shaking my head, going, "These guys are good."
You know what will be
is kind of our Danny Bonaducci, isn't he? You know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be the Jimmy Fallon and Almost Famous on the.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep.
All right,
See you, Aaron.
Adios.
Oh, Travy.
To help myself, raise your beer.
That's fantastic.
Every hotsy, Nazi, stand and cheer.
Yeah. It's springtime for Hitler and Germany.
I got it ready and then I
All right.
decided, you know what? I wasn't going to.
That would have been good.
No, you should play that.
Yeah.
Play it as the intro.
Yeah. And then do we have? Did you find? And it's at around the 4:20 mark. That's a long. It's like a 9-minute clip.
I don't know what part of it you're looking
So
for.
it's just where Kelly starts talking. So Caitlin Collins is going back and forth with her guest.
He starts talking at like 3:20.
Oh,
okay.
maybe it's 3:20
But
before.
yes.
Sorry. And they go to the clip. It's not
Okay.
a video of him. It's just like the words on the screen.
Then yes, then I've got
Okay.
it.
All right. Cool. It was Jeff. Is it Jeff Goldblum? What the hell is his name? Was talking with her. Is that right, Trigby? The Jeff Greenberg. That's what it is. Jeff Greenberg. Yeah. My brain is fried right now.
Welcome back. I'm Ben Jarbo with the Midwest Farm Report, and remember to follow along with us on all things
You know who's
agriculture
on the show
by
tomorrow?
downloading
For
our
those
app,
watching the
The
stream,
Farm. You
get
can
ready for
download it
yourself.
at
You know who's on the show tomorrow?
thefarmwi.com,
For an entire hour?
or by finding it on your
1
app
until
store.
2.
Now let's
Kira
take a look at
Saban's
those
back on the
midday
show
markets
tomorrow.
Oh,
from
nice.
Chicago.
We're
A
going
bit
to
of a
life
mixed
coaching.
bag as
We're going
we
to talk
look
about
at grain
anxiety
markets
and
today,
how
with
to
December corn
relax.
down a
That's a
quarter
very
at
good topic right now.
4.16
Yeah.
a quarter, while November soybeans are up 3 1/4 at 9.95.
78% of Americans
experiencing
experiencing some form of distress over the election.
Right?
I'm surprised it's that low, honestly. Everybody else just isn't paying attention, I guess.
November contracts are at 20.30 a hundredweight, down 5 cents, and December class 3 milk
Jeff Perry says, "Yay, Kira."
Absolutely.
Also, earlier when Pat was saying that he's always had TV hair, Andrew in Maine commented, "Trickby remembers from when he used to babysit Pat."
Now you've got the audience in on it, Trigby.
Yeah, but he suggested I babysat Pat.
Andrew
Oh,
goes back and
that's true,
forth
that's
with his comments going in either direction.
Andrew's a swing voter, clearly.
Like me in college, he goes both ways. I'll be here all hour, folks. Haven't heard that in a while.
Must be present to win. Plus $4 cherry bombs,
Or this one.
$2.75 cans of Bud Light and Miller Light, and $2 off Tito's double mixers. It's really hard.
Or here's a good one.
Where's the beef? For details, follow them on Facebook or at
Oh,
lazyoaklounge.com. The Dom Salvia
Or one I have
Show.
ready mostly for
scientists say the other day that
Peter
when
Rapine.
a man votes for a woman, he actually transitions into a woman.
What happens when a woman...
About 30 seconds.
Thank you.
I'll myself, I'll to me. I'm the crowd who's out to change our history. I'll myself, raise your hand. There's no greater dictator in the land. Everything Everything I do for you. If you're looking for a war, here's World War II. I'll myself raise your beer. Every hotsy, totsy, Nazi stand and cheer.
Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 34 past the hour of 12 noon on this Wednesday, October 23rd. A little producers there. Springtime for Hitler, if you're not familiar, from Broadway. One of my favorite tunes in the show, actually. Now, and we know for a fact that one of the things Donald Trump hates worse is being laughed at. So you have to laugh at the guy, right? Just how ridiculous he is. But of course, there's also a very heavy and serious side to this as well. And joined now again in this half hour by Trygve Olsen, like myself, a former Republican, like myself, a native of Wisconsin. Trygve has gone on, and in addition to working for people like John McCain in the past, to working for democracy around the world, the only person I know has been banned from Russia by Vladimir Putin himself, joins us here. And Trygve last night on Caitlin Collins on CNN, Jeff Greenberg joined her to discuss this article in The Atlantic and a subsequent interview with the New York Times on John Kelly, or with John Kelly. Decorated military general, was Trump's longest-serving White House chief of staff. I want to play this cut. This is from the New York Times interview. This is General Kelly in his own words on what Donald Trump said behind closed doors about admiring Hitler.
Unless you're someone like me or Mattis or people like that retired from the military or left the military, like Mark Esper or Mike Pompeo, and then go into a political job, whether it's elected or assigned by the White House, it's a little bit different because you're then involved in it. But for the most part, and that's why I'm so hesitant to talk. It's certainly never to tell or recommend to an American who they should vote for, because now that I'm out of the political job, I'm back to being pretty much a retired military officer who should not get too involved in this kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I until the former president started talking about this, and this goes back to when I was in the White House, for that matter, DHS, I was, originally the conversation would be, Mr. President, that's outside your authority, or, that's a routine use. You really don't want to do that inside the United States. But now that he's talking about it as I'm going to do it, it's disturbing.
That is retired General, four-star General John Kelly, former White House chief of staff to former President Donald Trump, talking to the New York Times about this Atlantic story that was on CNN last night on Caitlin Collins. Trygve, to hear a guy like John Kelly, who is admired in the military world, whose son was killed in action, it's powerful to me. And again, I understand Pat Kreitlow's earlier point. I know people probably share that. Why didn't he speak out earlier? I know in your time with former Senator McCain, my time working for Scott Klug in Congress and spending a lot of time with military folks working on military issues, they take this military code very seriously. They don't move out. They don't move into the political realm, the partisan political realm, unless they think it's absolutely necessary. And to Kelly's point, if I am interpreting this right, he basically said, look, I heard him say this when I was there, but now that he is openly saying it in the closing days of the campaign, we played this cut before where he has said that it's the, quote, the enemy within, referring to American citizens, and that bringing up in his own words that he would engage the military against our own citizens. I think that's what made Kelly speak out now.
Yeah, I think all of that's true. I think, the reality, I was talking to somebody who's planning on voting for Trump yesterday, and they're like, well, I think he's a horrible person, but, I like the policies. And we had a long conversation with a younger guy about why that matters. And, there's a decision made by the Trump campaign that they knew that they had to do everything they possibly could to disqualify with their voters from 2020 that person as a viable option. And really where the battle in this thing has always been, and at the Lincoln Project, we've been saying this from the outset, was going to come down to conservative Republicans, former Republicans who were uncomfortable with Trump, but, their partisan inclinations were to vote for Republicans. They comprise 60% of Evers Johnson voters in the state of Wisconsin. They don't like election denial. They don't want government, but at the same time, they don't want government telling them what kind of shotgun they can own. And, the key to doing that is to figure out how to get enough information to them. And I think this matters. It's why Liz Cheney is spending time in Waukesha County with Harris, why Harris is focusing on that. I think this will matter to a degree. It won't matter with the hardcore Trump people. But
veterans.
But veterans, older conservatives, yeah, it could.
Yeah. Comment off the YouTube, is it, Mr. Zamarin, from Andrew in Maine, saying experience drives values. Trigby values voting more than the average American because most Americans have never been without the ability to vote when they have not had to have a D&C to remove the remainders of miscarriages. They don't realize it does not mean they killed an unborn child. It would be nice if we could avoid living in a dictatorship for people who realize how poor it would be.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew's point is a really good one. And I made the point that I did about sort of our generation. And I Scott Walker's not the only one. In fact, I think about so many in our generation, Todd, even when we were coming up, right? Working in the state legislature, staff people. And I would have put myself in this category at that point. I wanted to be, and it was like, all right, I want to run campaigns and I want to run bigger campaigns. And loyalty was what people wanted. It wasn't your competence. I got lucky in the sense that, I got asked by the International Republican Institute that John McCain ran through McCain's connection to Scott McCallum, of all people. And I got asked to go to Poland and work with those who were, they're having their second election for president under freedom. And I really found something that I wanted to do, to my cause greater than self to work on. And I still got to do things in politics, right? Like in the US, I did do, I went pretty far, certainly, but I got to see things in places like Nigeria and Indonesia and Venezuela and Russia. We had a caller who mentioned Alexander Navalny. I didn't know Navalny. My wife knows Navalny and knows Navalny's wife. But I knew Boris Nemtsov, who was the leader of the Russian opposition before Navalny, who was gunned down in front of the Kremlin. In fact, I keep Boris's phone number in my phone. He was my friend. And, when I was thinking about the Lincoln Project and would I go and do that, I was offered a large sum of money to work on a super PAC for Donald Trump. And I was like, I can't do that. I would never do that. They basically wanted to keep me off of the Lincoln Project play. I would never do that because everything that I knew in my core, that it was about who I am, and I knew that I had to sit my kids down and I had to say everything I ever said to Boris Nemtsov would be a lie if I didn't do the right thing, which wasn't the right thing for my career, but was the right thing for my kids and for my country, and put cause greater than self. And it really wasn't until I faced that choice that I understood what John McCain would talk about, which is what he learned in the Hanoi Hilton. And we have so many people who have never experienced that. And thus, because they still want to be, they're willing to defend this stuff on Twitter every day, even if they wrap themselves in the mantle of being good Christian, patriotic Reagan Americans. The truth of the matter is, there's still that guy at Badger Boy State who wants to be or they're Scott Jennings.
That's just so
on
well
CNN.
said. That's so
All
well
people
said.
that I know well.
Right. And there's a list of people that you and I also know well that, look, it's not, I'm not going to run down verbatim every name, but I think your point earlier, it goes far beyond former Governor Scott Walker in this state.
Yes,
there are people who
across the
are
country.
still in the state capitol. There are people making a lot of money as lobbyists in the state of Wisconsin. There are business people in the state of Wisconsin that know full well the danger that Donald Trump represents. And still they go out and defend them as a transactional. Because
And
they want to
here's
be able
the
to do
thing.
business on K Street in Washington. They want to make money here in Wisconsin. And they're willing to feather their own nest for what? And Liz Cheney's point, as she said today, and she's made so many times, your dishonor, everybody, because I know Republicans listen particularly for Trigby. Remember, your dishonor, looking yourself in the face every morning in your nice McMansions in Wisconsin and wherever you live at, you have to look with that. You look and live with that for the rest of your life. Think about that. Trigby.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's not just Scott Walker or Scott Jennings. It just broke, and I probably knew this because I had seen the tweets, and then he unfollowed me. Chris LaCivita, who's running the Trump campaign, and I have been friends for a long time. We worked on a lot of campaigns back in the day. You know, and you can think of what you want of Chris. Chris won a couple of Purple Hearts in the first Gulf War, so there's that. But Chris LaCivita on Twitter right after January 6th said Donald Trump's lies are responsible for what we're seeing. Right. He knows better deep inside, but he was on a path to run I believe he was on a path to potentially run a presidential campaign. And then Donald Trump came along, and then you're faced with this choice. Do you take the 30 pieces of silver? And if you're a person who foundationally wants to be someone, you're willing to rationalize that any way that you have to. And I'm sure if Scott Walker would be brave enough to come on the show, I would love to have that debate with him. Mm-hmm. But he would never do that because he knows that deep down, it's all about being, not about doing, and always was.
Trigby, I mentioned this yesterday, I think on the show, Zombers Keep Me Honest, yesterday, the day before. I quoted you from about a year ago when we started talking about this race. And you said, Todd, I think it's all going to come down to Wisconsin. But you know what? If I had to put the entire future of the United States of America in anybody's hands, I'd trust my friends and neighbors in Wisconsin. I think your prediction has come true. It's all going to come down to our friends and neighbors.
Yeah, it will. No doubt. Always was going to be that. All the rest of it, to a degree, is noise. And, you know, if I was blessed with one skill, and I probably got it from my grandpa Doc, it was an ability to look at a lot of different symptoms and break it down pretty fast and be like, all right, here's what's here's what it's really about, you know, like, and I suppose that was his life of delivering 6,000 babies in St. Croix County in the rural areas during World War II, and literally going into houses where people had smallpox or whatever and figuring it out fast. But, you know, it was very clear that was where this thing was going to decide. And I do take comfort in the idea that it is going to be people in Wisconsin who decide this. And you're seeing a willingness by Democrats to reach out to those people. And that's really a testament to somebody like Ben Winkler and the Democrat powers that be in the state of Wisconsin, that they're really about doing something, not about just simply being.
We're going to come back, wrap things up with Trigby. Also get that question in about North Korean troops in Russia off the text line. Let Trigby look at his crystal ball and talk about being on the road. Don't go anywhere. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for a Wednesday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Stand and cheer. High on myself.
That makes me want to go see that show now.
couple of days ago in a Bronx barbershop, Trump was talking to voters, and they're like, "Hey, I have a kid who's in public schools. You keep saying stuff about the sex change operations." And he's like, "Oh yeah, it happens."
I know. I don't really want to go there right now, Trigby. Do you?
No.
But yeah, so I had that. I think I sent you that clip.
I don't remember if you did.
Yeah.
But quick thing to those in the stream, since I mentioned it,
Yeah.
no, children are not going to schools and getting $40,000 operations that take 5 hours within the school day for free and then going home. No.
Simply does not happen. Rick Wilson actually had a really good cut last night online. Do you see that, Trigby, about that subject? I thought he handled it really well.
Yeah, are you gonna play? You don't
that's
need
what we
to do
gotta
it while
do.
I'm on that ad, the new ad with the dad talking.
Yeah, could you find it, Zommers, if you can? It's the Lincoln Project ad with the dad talking.
Or you could play the one about the trans stuff. That one might even be better because I know people in Wisconsin are being inundated with it. The one that was on Morning Show.
If you find them, let me know, Aaron.
I mean, I found one that's called he/him.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
All right, 10 seconds.
People try to put us to down.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is now 9 before the hour of 1 o'clock. Want to have Trigby Olson, Senior Advisor at the Lincoln Project, on. A lot to get to and a short time to get there. Want to get to this quick question, Trigby, if you give us a quick answer off the text line. And forget who it was exactly. Zommers is finding it for us. There we go. It is Steve listening on WAUK in Milwaukee asking, what does Trigby have to say about North Korean troops now being in Russia? What is next? If you have missed it, it appears that Vladimir Putin is now making a deal with North Korea to bring in North Korean troops to fight in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big deal in the sense that it's an expansion of the conflict and pulling in another member of the Axis of illiberal into the fight. I'm not, so on the battlefield, I can't really tell you what difference it makes other than it says that Putin is running out of his own troops that are decent. I think the Ukrainians will probably be in a position to handle that. I do think it has the potential to be escalatory. I know I read someplace that the South Koreans have been more actively coordinating and sharing intelligence with NATO. And I think what you're seeing is, this further, this battle that Donald Trump versus Harris is part of a much bigger global battle. And ground zero on election day is going to be of that battle is Wisconsin, like we were talking about. But our generation's task, and this is maybe where our generation has a chance to get it right, is one between autocracy and democracy. And how freedom and lack of freedom, and it's going on around the world. And Ukraine is a front line in it. Wisconsin is a front line in it. And
not to cut you off, Trigby, but give us your 30-second quick down and dirty here. We're now under 2 weeks out from the election. How are you feeling about it? Where should people be watching? Obviously, we all have to vote in Wisconsin. Number one, vote. But beyond that, as a political expert, how is this race shaping up?
The credible polling, there's so much junk polling out there, and there's so many people because they have so much anxiety that's looking for simplistic answers to a degree to that distress. So they want to find the poll that reinforces what they believe. So you've got all these junk polls that are out there. The race with the credible polls that have the resources to do that have consistently shown Harris leading nationally by about 3 points. For Wisconsin, I'm waiting to see what the Marquette poll comes out and says. If Harris is, at 3.2% nationally, she's probably pretty good in the existential states. If she's at 2.6, it's going to be a really long night. And this is not going to end on election night. A wise Nigerian I was in Nigeria once years ago, and a man who had fought in many civil wars in Nigeria, an old man, said to me, I don't know how it is in your country, but in our country, the winner of elections isn't decided by who gets the most votes. It's decided by how long those who lose will accept being governed by those who win. And I worry that we've reached a place where if Donald Trump loses, that there are going to be a lot of people who don't accept that. And if Donald Trump somehow prevails, it's going to be a problem, because Donald Trump's only path to winning is very narrowly. 5 to 10,000 votes in Wisconsin, 30,000 votes in Michigan, 60, 70,000 votes in Pennsylvania. He will lose the popular vote nationally, and it will be the 5th time in 7 elections that has happened, and Republicans have won all of them because of the Electoral College. So I just think we're in a really dangerous place, but we just have to have faith in each other, not be afraid, because what Donald Trump and the autocrats, and it was true of Adolf Hitler, it's true of Vladimir Putin, it's true of all of them. If I've learned one thing around the world, we are either a nation that has faith in each other, or we are a nation that is afraid of each other. We have to have faith in each other.
Great advice from a great friend. Super quickly, well, I'll give you a choice, Trey. If you want to play this ad, or you want to go to calls? We got 2 minutes.
No, let's take the calls.
All right, very quickly, LA Tom, you've been holding a while. If you make it quick in 30 seconds, LA Tom, it's all yours.
Absolutely, guys. First off, I think Democrats need to start actually saying that we are going to win this election, instead of making it where we're such an underdog and stuff, but say, yes, we are confident we are going to win this election if we get our voters out. And I hope that after this election, we can the media can truly put Donald Trump in the dustbins of history. And yes, there'll be other authoritarian dictators, but he's got some type of charisma. And I think that the media needs to really, really look at itself and say, you know what, just because it's better for CBS does not mean that it's better for the country. And really mean it.
Yep.
And
great call, Tom. Thank you so very much. Trigger, really quickly, I think that's a great point. I mean, for what you're seeing, if people get out and vote, you feel good, but nothing's for sure in terms of Harris winning. Is that accurate to say?
If everybody gets out and votes, that's
right.
Yeah, I think Harris will win, and probably she'll win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She should.
Mark from Perdisac. Mark, 30 seconds. It's all yours, Mark.
Yeah, Donald Trump is a example of Hamilton's warning in Federalist 75, an avaricious man willing to betray the interests of his constituents for his own personal aggrandizement and wealth. And in the Declaration of Independence, there was a warning that one of the griefs against King George III is that the judges served him and not the people in justice.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mark. Yeah, Trevi. I mean, look, Trump's a narcissist. We know this. He puts himself before country, and it really is incumbent on each of us to join together this coalition, as Harris and Cheney have been talking about again in Wisconsin, as Obama and Walz talked about in Madison yesterday. It's a coalition to stand up, but we can go back to, arguing about policy later.
Yeah, for those who are stressed out, if this weekend you're all stressed about it, I got a good piece of advice. Watch Mel Brooks' The Producers. It will give you at least 2 hours of not thinking about it and a lot of laughs about springtime for Hitler in Germany.
Trigby, you're amazing. We'll see you on the road next week, my friend. Thank you very much.
We will see you on Monday, Todd.
Sounds good. Stay tuned. Hour 2 is next. Steve Milwaukee says, thank you, Trigby. Good answer. John, Kelly, Millie, Mattis, McCraven generals know the danger he poses with his authoritarian tendencies.
Yeah,
there you
100%.
go.
Zommers, if you pull a piece of my little soliloquy about faith and fear in each other, I'll pump it out.
That was great. Yeah,
sounds good.
I'm sure.
I will. Yeah, I'll do that after the show this afternoon.
Yeah, that was really
All
good,
right.
Trigby. Great stuff. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, let me
I'll
know
talk
where
later.
we're at on stuff. Yeah, call me
As
after.
soon as I get off the show, I got to get on the horn, and I will have something by the end of business day. So
perfect. Awesome.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
And on the Civic Media app. Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app. This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Candidates are fanning out across key swing states in the final weeks of the campaign. Former President Trump in Georgia today. Vice President Kamala Harris will hold a town hall in Pennsylvania. Before leaving, Harris commenting on former Trump Chief of Staff John Kelly's interview in the New York Times. Kelly called his former boss a fascist who wants to rule as a dictator. Kelly also says Trump spoke highly of Hitler.
We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want?
The Trump campaign denying Kelly's account. The CDC says a deadly E. coli outbreak linked to McDonald's Quarter Pounder burgers has killed one person and caused illnesses in more than 36 others. McDonald's says it appears sliced onions may be tainted, not the burgers, but has paused sales of the item in affected states. Baseball fans mourning the death of L.A. Dodgers legend Fernando Valenzuela. He was 63.
This is your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network.
Civic Media News. I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. We're down to the last 2 weeks to the presidential election. Democratic running mate Tim Walz in Madison yesterday needled Donald Trump for canceling interviews.
I don't care how exhausted he is, because I can promise you he's not as exhausted as the American people are of him.
Early voting is underway. Former President Barack Obama urged the Walz rally to take action.
Do not sit back and hope for the best. Do not think this is a distraction or a joke.
The two warned that a second Trump administration with no guardrails would have dangerous consequences. A fire has shut down a Jefferson County ethanol plant. Officials at the Allbaugh Bio plant say the fire started Monday in one of the facility's dryers. Allbaugh Bio calls itself Wisconsin's largest ethanol producer. I'm Terry Bell, Civic Media News. Now here's what you need to know closer to home.
This is news from WMDX Madison. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Two stories that show just how many people are in need here in Dane County. Every year, the Goodman Community Center does a Thanksgiving drive, giving families turkey, veggies, gravy, and rolls. This year, they knew they had 4,000 baskets to give away. They opened registration Monday, and within 24 hours, all 4,000 baskets were claimed. They've been doing this drive for 36 years, and this is the fastest it's ever filled up. If you're able to help, they could still use more donations. Meanwhile, a winter clothing drive in Middleton is starting early because so many more people need help. The Middleton Tourism Commission does this every year. They collect donated coats, hats, gloves, and scarves for people who need them. According to WMTV, last year they helped double the number of people than the year before. And now they expect even higher demand, especially when it comes to coats. So if you've got old gear laying around in the garage, in the basement, or just hanging in the closet, it's a great time to help your neighbor. That's what you need to know. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson, WMDX News.
The Badgers brace for Penn State. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. College football, the Wisconsin Badgers host Penn State Saturday night. The number 3 ranked team in the nation. Quarterback Braden Locke asked, does it help that they've played top-ranked teams like USC or Alabama already this season?
To be out there against a very talented Alabama team, to be out there against a very talented USC team, I think it's helped our team grow, and I think it's helped us mature. You know, I'm growing each and every week. I'm not naive to think that I'm not still, young. I think I've had 7 or 8 starts. So I think you learn and you grow each and every week.
NBA, the Bucks in Philly tonight against the 76ers. Torian Prince asked if the Bucks are ready to kick off the season.
I feel like we're ready. Obviously, having experience in the game, knowing that those are going to come, staying level-headed, taking advantage of the highs, and then when things do get lower, adversity hits, being able to weather the storm as fast as possible.
That's the Bucks' new forward, Torian Prince. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
A feisty northwest wind is whipping our high temperatures today down to just the mid-50s. With more and more sunshine this afternoon and clear skies tonight, we crashed chilly, falling into the mid-30s. It'll be a crisp start to the day. But under sunny skies, highs reach the mid-60s and rain rolls in by night. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 57.
This is an important announcement for Wisconsinites who plan to vote in the November 2024 election. Leading nonpartisan economists have analyzed the economic plans of Donald Trump and concluded that he would cause inflation to rise and the economy to slow. And 16 Nobel Prize-winning economists wrote a letter warning that Donald Trump would reignite inflation with his fiscally irresponsible budgets. Donald Trump's tariff plan would act as a national sales tax, costing the average family as much as $4,000 per year. But Vice President Kamala Harris's plan would help middle-class families deal with rising costs. In her first 100 days, Kamala Harris would pass a ban on price gouging at the grocery store. And as vice president, she worked to cap the cost of many prescription drugs, including insulin, saving many families thousands of dollars per year. On the economy, the choice is clear.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zomers on the board. Glad to have you along on this Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. It is
Hump Day,
and it's a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Glad to have you along with us. Beautiful sunny skies, Mr. Zomers. A perfect fall day, or at least I think for most of us across Wisconsin. Great. I can't get enough of this weather.
Yeah, it's very nice outside.
And it certainly is. And this week in Madison here, it happens to be homecoming week for UW-Madison. So big game, of course, as you heard maybe earlier, Penn State. Mike Clemens talking about that a little bit there. Penn State in town. Looking forward to the big game. I'm not going, but looking forward to it. And, of course, you can hear the big game all across Civic Media simply by downloading the Civic Media app. It's free. It takes less than a minute. It's what Gail King calls a deal, the Civic Media app. And then you scroll down one of our fine stations, including WRCE in Richland Center. Click on that. Won't cost you a nickel, not even a cent. You can listen to Matt LePay, Mark Tauser, and the entire crew on Badger Game Day. It's a night game, actually. NBC in town. Big prime time game on Saturday, as the Nittany Lions are in town against our Wisconsin Badgers. I hope, of course, Brady Ewing and I both picked this as a loss. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think we did.
I don't remember.
But I think they got a chance. I just hope it's competitive, right?
You just want a good game.
That's right. It'll be because so far Wisconsin's beat Rutgers, Northwestern, and Purdue, and that's great, but they're not in the upper echelons of the Big Ten. So this is a game that you want to really, we're going to find out some things on Saturday night. So be listening to the Civic Media app and all of our great stations across the state, which are part of the Badger Radio Network. Many thanks to Trygve Olsen of the Lincoln Project and also Pat Kreitlow of Up North News Radio every morning from 6 until 8 for being our guests in hour number one. Remember, you can catch all of our shows in podcast form simply by going to civicmedia.us and checking it out there.
Or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Or
you can just
anywhere.
look up the Todd Allbaugh Show, for example.
For example. Want to bring up something what we mentioned at a meeting today, actually. And I want to be careful about this as a white dude to talk, but I think we all should be talking about this. And our colleague and our friend Earl Ingram, who happens to be black and is part of the longtime activist, I would say leader of the black community in Milwaukee. Word has it that and this is fantastic, they're going to be putting together a special on that's going to go right to digital on this issue, talking to black voters in Wisconsin, but particularly in Milwaukee. So I want to preface my comments by saying I acknowledge that as a white dude, I don't have a lot of standing to talk about it, but I still think it's all of our responsibilities to recognize and have discussions about race in this country, and particularly with this election that's coming up in less than 2 weeks. And all of us, regardless of our ethnicity or our background, the American ideal is to have a better country. As Joe Biden says, we've never fully lived up to that American ideal, but we keep striving towards it. So a couple of days ago, we talked about the mega plan to go after schools that teach the truth about touchy issues in American history, like slavery. Remember, we talked about this, that Trump has said he's going to defund schools, not give federal dollars to public schools that teach things like America was built on the back of slavery. That's something he said, not me. He said that.
Or that it's on stolen land.
Both
of which are simply true.
They're simply true, indisputable. So I get it, right? We want to see it as something in the distant past. It's easier for us folks who are not black or brown and see it as having no relevance to modern day society and politics. But then comes along, gasp, a couple of truth tellers in the form of a father and son team, and I hope I get the pronunciation of this correct, Neil and Ashwini Sahgal. They examined the family history of all 535 members of the U.S. Congress in the 21 to 23 session. So 2021 to 2023 session, all 535 members in Congress, 100 in the Senate, 435 in the House. And they found, this is very interesting, they found that nearly 100 members of basically the current Congress were descendants of slaveholders. They use for a definition a quote-unquote slaveholder as owning 16 or more slaves. What's interesting is that the current median net worth of slaveholder descendants, get this, is 5 times larger than their peers. $500.6 million to $1.1 million. The Sahgals explain, quote, wealth creates many privileges. Members of Congress do not just inherit wealth and advantages, they shape the lives of all Americans. They decide how to allocate federal funds, set tax rates, and create regulations, unquote. The truth is that the legacy of slavery is with us to this day. But of course, it's not in plain sight like it used to be. But when you know how to dig just a bit below the surface, like the Sahgals did, there it is, contributing to our present day economic inequalities. And of course, unfortunately, still a source of division amongst us. As our friend Matt Flynn says, history. You're not woke unless and until you know history. Back in 1863, the year slaves were emancipated, the estimated value of all enslaved people was $13 trillion in today's numbers. Now, most of us can agree that family wealth is passed through the generations. Doesn't matter where you come from. Intergenerational wealth transfer also transfers privilege and opportunity and advantage. So not just certain segment, anybody who comes a quote unquote family from money, right? It transfers down, generally speaking. So how does this apply today? Well, federal policies like low estate taxes, right? Number 2, wealth factors in who goes into the finest universities or whether one goes to college at all. And finally, connections to provide access to elite social networks. Quote, it's not what you know, it's who you know that counts, unquote. One of my grandfather's favorite sayings, actually. Defendants of slaveholders are not, I repeat, not, in my opinion, responsible for the actions of their ancestors. But here's the fact. All of us can see that inequality did not end with emancipation in 1863. Today, we can support political candidates who would dismantle rather than perpetuate economic disparities born of ancestral history. That's a polite way of saying to all of us, myself included, as we go to the ballot box, and remember you can do so now. Early voting in person has started in Wisconsin all the way through Election Day on November 5th. These are things that I hope we consider. We talked yesterday about tuning out radio ads, television ads, and ads in our mailboxes. It's silly season, as we say in politics. You don't really know what's coming in your mailbox or over the air that's really truthful or not. So stop listening to the ads right now and start listening to your conscience and to your heart and to your gut. And start looking at history like we just talked about. Think to yourself, which candidates on the ballot are going to stop the perpetuation of economic disparities rather than perpetuate? Which candidate is actually going to say, you know what, we need to stop dividing folks, and we need to stop choosing winners and losers and raise the tide for all boats? I can't remember who it was. I was listening to part of our coverage yesterday, whether it was, I think it was actually Governor Walz, now that I think about it. Governor Tim Walz, who was in Madison yesterday with Barack Obama, former president. And Tim Walz talked about a great former U.S. Senator from Minnesota who passed away in a plane accident, Paul Wellstone, and quoted the late, great Senator Paul Wellstone of Minnesota, who said, "We all win when we all win." Those are the kind of people I like to vote for. Somebody that says, you know what, let's stop saying that these folks over here should get more and these folks over here should get less. Why don't we try to ensure that there is at least an equal starting line? That's where I've always come from. That's why I supported guys for so many years, people like, happen to be guys, Steve Gunderson, former Republican of Western Wisconsin. I'll never forget this. As a kid, and as a kid who didn't understand politics, as a kid who didn't understand the economy that well, but I got this because I guess it was simplistic. And Steve Gunderson used to say, you know what Republicanism means to me? And of course, today it has an entirely different connotation. But let's take out labels and just say policy. Gunderson used to say, I don't believe that it's government's job to ensure that everyone is successful. I believe it's government's job to strive to get everyone to an equal starting line. And what we just talked about now, not everybody is born at an equal starting line. We can help everybody get there. And then what you do with that after that, that's on you. But as we go to the polls, think about that. We'll be back after this. Oh, I'm sorry, we got about 30 seconds left. Sorry about that, Mr. Sommers. I was watching the clock there. We're going to come back, take your phone calls on this. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Mary corrected me. It's we all do better when we all do better. Sorry about that. I tried. I was paraphrasing. There's the direct quote. Thank you, Mary Mount Horma. Appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. It's the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
2.7 WMDX.
Coming soon to the Overture Center, Late Night Catechism.
Some rulers lead by example. Others lead with a ruler.
I am a Roman general. All right, all you village people, sit up in your seat, will you please?
Late Night Catechism.
Are you putting on lipstick in my class?
Attendance.
Quick correction, L.A. Tom. Steve Gunderson is an incredible man. He's still with us. He's just not.
Well, yes, thank you. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. We'll correct that. I appreciate it.
Today at tickets.overture.org.
Looking for a roundup of the day's important headlines in quick podcast form? Search no more. Find it now on the 92.7 WMDX website at WMDXradio.com. Your news just for the Madison area. I'm Savannah Tomei-Olsen.
He was on one of our first shows.
News.
He was. We got to get him back. Got to get him back on the show.
I heard the scientists say the other day that when a man votes for a woman, he actually transitions into a woman.
What happens when a woman votes for a man?
Turns into a man. But that's okay, though.
That's fine.
Yeah, because then she gets control of her body.
Oh.
You see what I did there? Yeah.
The Dom Salvia Show. Weekdays from 4 till 6 on the Civic Media Radio Network and on the Civic Media app. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Will you dress up for Halloween, and what will you wear?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a lazy Halloweener.
A lazy Halloweener.
I just wore a football jersey and call it a day.
I have a prisoner costume, and it goes on over your other clothes, so I'll probably put that on when I take trick-or-treaters. I was never a huge Halloween guy to begin with. Never a huge Halloweener. A new phrase has been coined here tonight.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8.
What did I say, Dave?
Radio station.
What did I say about going to the bar?
I don't know.
That's fine. Wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Talking a little bit about this legacy of the past. History sometimes catches up with us and how we apply that to voting. Don't listen to the radio and TV ads right now politically. Don't look at the ads politically coming in to your mailbox. They're great if you have a wobbly table. If you get enough of them, you just stick it under and leg of the table and it's fine. That's what those big colorful, glossy flyers are good for. Talking about the legacy of slavery, how it's passed down generationally in ways that we don't even anticipate or think about every day. And when we go to the voting booth here coming up, well, again, early voting is open now through Election Day. Think less about these last-minute political ads and more about your internal heart and soul and mind and gut. Which candidates would help us get us all to a better place? And thank you, Mary Mount Horeb. Again, I tried to quote the late, great senator from Minnesota, Paul Wellstone. I think I said, when we all win, we all win. Is that what I said? Yeah. The actual verbatim quote, I appreciate, keep me honest, Mary. Quote, we all do better when we all do better. Unquote. Same premise, but always good to be accurate. Also, I guess I mentioned, one of my early political, still is, mentors, Steve Gunderson from the 3rd District. I may have affirmed that he's no longer with us. That could be further from the truth.
No, it was Tom commented that he was an incredible man.
Oh,
Tom from LA saying Steve Gunderson was an incredible man. And he says, he meant he was an incredible congressman. He knows he's still alive.
Yes, right. He was an incredible congressman, still an incredible person. But Gunderson said, I don't know why. Some things when you're a kid, I guess, are impressionable, stuck with me. But one of the things that former Congressman Steve Gunderson was fond of saying during his time in Congress is, it's not government's job to ensure that everyone is successful. It's government's job to ensure that everyone gets to an equal starting line and has equal opportunities. And then what we do with those opportunities, that's on us. But historically, factually, we can't ignore the fact that some folks are born at a starting line that's way ahead of other people. And that's where government has a role. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Steve, Milwaukee, says, glad you brought income inequality up. It is the number one driver of this election. 48% in the 1960s was the corporate tax rate and 90% for the top income tax rate. Need that or closer to that once again. Steve in Milwaukee. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Karina in Milwaukee. Karina, thanks for holding. What do you got?
Hi. What I want to say, and really ask you, because I've been talking to people, and they're saying, "Well, we're not gonna vote." And my understanding and my feeling about people who are not voting, that means that even though I don't want to exercise my rights, which is a bad example because, as you can see, we're allowed to take the rights for your own body for females because we were like, nah, nobody ever going to do that. But the thing is, my perspective is that there's no way in hell I'll give my vote and my rights to Trump. So I will vote for a chosen by me, and because I don't want, if I don't vote, it will go to a winner. Am I understanding that correctly? Because I've been told that no, this is not how it works. My understanding always, if you do not vote, then your vote, your vote will go to the winner.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, everyone should be voting who's eligible, including yourself. And so, and I would encourage you, talked about this show before, I feel in this election in particular, that not voting or voting for a third party or writing somebody in, that's essentially a vote for Trump. So, but I've said this before on this show, I'll keep saying it, regardless of who you intend to vote for, I encourage everyone who is eligible, legally eligible, to get out and vote. American participation in American democracy is essential. People have literally lived and died for all of us to have this freedom, this right to vote. So that's first and foremost. And as Trigby and Pat talked about in hour number 1, in Wisconsin, we know that we have accurate and honest and truthful voting. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Let's go to Gary in Sussex. Gary, thanks for listening. What's say?
Well, okay, other than Kamala Harris, when she's talking about she was born into a middle class, I was born into a very poor class. And my mother got divorced when I was 5 years old, and we were living hand to mouth, crummy little apartments. Ended up moving because she couldn't afford this apartment, so we went to a cheaper apartment. Got brothers and sisters. There's 5 of us. And as I grew up, I worked hard. So when people ask me, or my bosses ask, who wants to work Saturday, I'll work Saturday. Who wants to work overtime, I'll work overtime. And it got me to the point to where I'm at today, a business owner and owning my own heating and air conditioning business and doing well. Okay. Now, my son married a Nigerian woman. Okay. So she's black. My grandkids are half black. And I'm just wondering if you believe in reparations. That's the question that I have for you.
Well, I thank you for sharing that, Gary. And, like you, I grew up middle class. My parents got divorced. My mom was basically raising us alone for the help of my grandparents for 3 years. So I get growing up lower middle class and having to struggle. That's number one. So I can be empathetic on that. I think reparations is a great topic to talk about. I also admit that I don't think I'm 100% qualified to talk about that accurately. We can all have opinions on it. I think there are some places, and I apologize. I don't remember the name of it. Matt Flynn could tell me, or Earl Ingram, but wherever it is, I think it's one of the suburbs of St. Louis. Zomers, correct me if I'm wrong, where an entire community is wiped out. An African community was wiped out with a big fire, and those people were just, their lives were changed forever. So I think that situation where someone's entire generational, lives were changed forever, I think that's something we should consider. Should every single person, again, what I said earlier, descendants of slaveholders are not responsible for the actions of their ancestors. So it's a complicated question, and I'm open to having a good discussion about it. Back after this on the Todd Allbaugh Show.
Yeah, I think it really depends what you mean by that, by reparations. And as for the spelling of my last name, I guess, yeah, I might as well. It's the first one that you mentioned.
A drunk driver almost crashed into Vice President Kamala Harris's motorcade in Milwaukee Monday night. The sheriff says the driver pulled to the inside shoulder to avoid the motorcade. A deputy pulled the driver over and arrested him.
Tulsa.
There's help out there for people changing their Medicare plans.
I wasn't sure. So.
Rhonda Randall of United Healthcare recommends justplainclear.com for advice in everyday language.
Original Medicare isn't going to cover a lot of things related to dental and visual and hearing. It's very much limited to more serious medical conditions, whereas many Medicare...
I know it's just a coincidence, but it's really funny to me that right after Donald Trump worked at a McDonald's, now there's been an E. coli outbreak in quarter pounder hamburgers.
That's pretty funny.
Like, obviously it's tragic. One person's died from it so far. But the coincidence.
I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. The Madison police chief was a top contender for a job in San Jose, according to local reports there. Sean Barnes joined MPD as chief in 2021. Last year, he was vying for the chief position in Chicago. Dozens of Wisconsin volunteers are down in Florida helping recovery efforts after Hurricanes Helene and Milton. One of them is Green Bay real estate agent Mike Pritzel. He's been spending his days serving food, cleaning, and basically doing whatever he can.
You name it, we do it. It's whatever's being asked of us. Today, as an example, I've spent most of my morning so far trying to help a resident of this shelter to get transportation to a doctor's appointment. And you would think that is simple, and it's not.
He's only been there about 10 days, and he's already served in 3 different areas. There are all kinds of ways you can help support hurricane relief. To learn more, you can go to civicmedia.us/help. That's what you need to know. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. This is WMDX News.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. For every episode of the DC show The Penguin on Max, Colin Farrell goes through hours of makeup prep. According to recent numbers, it's paying off, as Variety reports that the 5th episode of Season 1 of The Penguin pulled in 1.8 million viewers. The show has added viewers with every new episode that drops. New shows of The Penguin premiere every Sunday night on Max at 10 p.m. Central. Do you have great acting chops? Smoke weed? Can you rap? If so, update your resume, because Snoop Dogg is looking for someone to portray himself in a new biopic. The movie was first announced in 2022, and now the search is on as they are in the casting phase and seeking someone to play a younger version of Snoop. Between his role on The Voice, opening weed stores in LA, and popping up at the Olympics and on NFL games, the Dogfather told Entertainment Tonight whoever plays young Snoop will have to be a phenomenal actor. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
This is your local Civic Media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us.
A feisty northwest wind is whipping our high temperatures today down to just the mid-50s. With more and more sunshine this afternoon and clear skies tonight, we crash chilly. Falling into the mid-30s, it'll be a crisp start to the day. But under sunny skies, highs reach the mid-60s and rain rolls in by night. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 57.
When you're having computer problems, you need a company you trust to get things working again, quickly and affordably. Madison Computer Works has been doing that for business and residential customers for decades. Our computer care plans take away the hassle of being without your computer or needing to bring it in for repair. Starting at only $10 a month, our local and friendly techs provide remote help and can fix most problems in just minutes. Call 608-231-8000 and sign up today. Madison Computer Works, computers that work for you.
The Dom Salvia Show.
Donald Trump was in the great state of Michigan, my birth state, and he insulted Detroit.
Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president.
You're in Detroit, man! I would tell you, sir, we would only be so lucky if we had the mentality of people trying to do better for their cities, for small businesses moving in. There's a renaissance going on in the city of Detroit.
The Dom Salvia Show. Weekdays from 4 till 6 on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead. and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along here on a Wednesday afternoon. Mr. Zommers on the board. I don't know, Zommers. I turned 55 this week, and the mad cow has taken effect.
Well, at least you get a discount at Denny's.
Exactly right. I struggled. I was trying. I don't know why I had St. Louis in my head. I same kind of sort of general area of the U.S. I was trying to talk earlier about the Tulsa race massacre, and we were up against the clock there. Gary had a legit and good question about reparations, and look, this is people can have different opinions on this. And again, I don't believe that I'm the most qualified person to talk about this. But I think if you look at what happened at Tulsa, the Tulsa race massacre, where a group of white supremacist terrorists went on a 2-day-long massacre that happened between May 31st and June 1st of 1921, when mobs of white residents, some of whom were appointed by city officials, attacked black residents and destroyed homes and businesses in the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was blatant. It was unequivocal, indisputable. And in that part of the country, that blatant, intentional attack on a set of families changed their descendants' lives forever. Should there be a discussion for those folks? Yeah, I think there should. But again, should we start talking about reparations for every single minority person in the United States of America who's a citizen, or every descendant of a slaveholder, or every, descendant of a Native American? I don't know. What I do know is we should have conversations, thoughtful conversations about that with people that know more than I do. I think we should talk openly and frankly about educational opportunities for descendants of those folks, because I still believe that education is a key to lift people up, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, no matter what your pigment of your skin is. But what I do know is calling names and hardening our opinions and never listening to one another is not the way forward. Again, to quote Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. David calling in from beautiful Mequon. How is the weather over, the fall weather in beautiful Mequon next to Lake Michigan today, David?
It's a comfortable 62 degrees.
Oh, fantastic.
It's partly cloudy, so it's or partly sunny. I have no qualms with it. The trees are in full bloom.
Oh.
It looks spectacular.
My favorite time of year.
I have to say, to your audience out there, if they get a chance, they should really take the Kettle Moraine scenic drive. It's up in Elkhart Lake,
right.
And it's spectacular. It's hard to believe that something that resides here so close to within Metro Milwaukee is right there. It's just unbelievable. Anyway,
well, I appreciate that, because this is my favorite time of year. But go ahead.
Yes, I wanted just to reach out to you. So in regards with all this, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with Thomas Sowell, and he actually makes a quote on this, and he's a conservative economist. He's a much older gentleman. He's been around for decades. He's not well known, I think, outside the conservative realm, just because he is a black conservative.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, he mentions in a quote where he goes, "Have we reached the ultimate stage of absurdity where some people are held responsible for things that happened before they were born, while other people are not held responsible for what they themselves are doing today?"
Mm-hmm.
And the point is what he's getting at, and he has, like I said, he's got quite a few books out there. We're penalizing people for actions that are, quite a long time. Now, keep in mind, when you remember with the Japanese back in the Second World War, they were put into concentration camps, encampments within the United States for just being Japanese.
Correct.
And the joke is we actually had Japanese people within our military fighting for the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a correct decision at that point, because there wasn't that much time that had passed for some sort of, basically, I think it was under Ronald Reagan, actually, where he actually acknowledged what happened with that situation with the Japanese Americans, and there was some money that was allocated towards that.
Mm-hmm.
With this, I think the best thing that we could do with that situation, and you brought up the event back in 1921 in
The Tulsa race,
Oklahoma.
right? Correct.
Yeah, right. So I think there has to be a better education with that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So, get more people informed with that. That number one. And number two, I do think we have to do a better job of trying to promote, people that feel like they are disadvantaged, that they today have the opportunity to do what they want to do. And what I mean by that is, if you look all around, we are definitely the melting pot of the world. And we have all different religions, different colors, races, whatever you want to call it. And I do think we have to look at the bigger picture that, be as it may, we did go through segregation in this country. My parents, who are, I think I've told this to you before, were Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
In the South, and you had segregation, fairly recently. And Jews were actually a part of that, but not as defined, because you could blend in, as my mom would say, blend in with the scenery. But it was definitely there.
Right.
And since then, I think we just have to look. Now, Gary in Sussex just had called before, and he mentioned, listen, he came from a very poor background,
mm-hmm.
and now he has his own company today. He's taking care of his family and his children. And I think we have to look to more successes. We hear too much negativity out there. We hear about all the bad stuff, and that sells, let's be honest, that sells papers, that sells advertising on the news, and the good feel stories are kind of an afterthought, and you very rarely hear about that. And I really think that is something that we have to kind of focus on to encourage, because otherwise, if you keep hearing the same thing, bad stuff, you're going to have, bad, I guess, thoughts and things,
One of the things I appreciate about this show is you and other callers. I mean, I also think having these civil, calm, thoughtful dialogue and conversation about this is a step forward as well. And when we have people elected to office who like to rile people up and rant and rave, I don't find that particularly helpful. And I think having disciplined, thoughtful leaders in our politics, in our churches, in our communities, in our synagogues, in our temples, on and on, when you have people who are willing to sit and have thoughtful discussions with one another, you're going to get a lot further by bringing all, and each of us, doesn't matter where we come from, all of us have a certain biases. And when we bring that to the table and let that be the first thing out, I don't think that's helpful. So I think just a good conversation is a great first step. But I appreciate the call. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Our ongoing contributor, Mr. Jeff Perry, off of the Facebook line this afternoon, saying, quote, like you, Todd, I don't feel qualified to speak on the topic of reparations, but to make a point about history, not even 2 lifetimes ago have passed since the Civil War. A person born in 1860 could easily have lived until 1940, and a person born in 1940 could easily be alive today. Not that much time has passed since slavery, unquote. Great perspective there by Jeff.
I remember the first time somebody brought that up to me, that it really hasn't been that long, and it kind of blew my mind. I never thought about it that way.
Great point, Jeff. Appreciate it. 855-752-4842. Let's go to the phone lines. Dick, listening on WMDX here in Madison. Dick, thanks for being a listener. What do you got?
Well, you're going to have to put me into the unqualified as well. But also in Oklahoma, when the Indians were sitting on all the oil, we know about that too. I'm certainly sure that the Tulsa thing and the thing with the Native Americans, they certainly are due something. But where is it going to come from if we keep putting people like Trump in office? Because everything's going to corporate tax breaks. There won't be any money for anybody.
Right.
I mean,
great point.
They're talking now with this school situation that you were talking about earlier. That's all about dumbing down the electorate. Let's just be honest about it.
Right.
And the only people who afford to be able to go to school, should he be elected again, it's very elite private schools, and I see public schools would probably go by the wayside in short order within 5-6 years of him getting reelected. I could see it that bad under him.
No, I mean, and again, when someone, appreciate the call, Dick, when someone says something, take them at their word, right? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's Trump talking about using the military against fellow American citizens, or Trump saying that he's going to defund our public schools if they're not teaching factual history, or if they are rather teaching factual history. I mean, and this, I guess, what astounds me, and I shouldn't be, as my friend Sam likes to say, nothing surprises me anymore, but it was unexpected. So I guess it's not a surprise anymore, but it's even somewhat unexpected that in 2024, a major candidate for president of the United States has the audacity to suggest that the United States of America was not built on the back of slavery. That's just an unfortunate and embarrassing fact. Doesn't mean we should sulk around and not be proud of America, but we also have to recognize our history. It's a fact that our Native American brother and sisters were here on this land. This was their homeland that was taken from them. That's just a fact. Just as sure as your coffee cup is sitting on your table, or that your drill is in your hand, or that your car is going down the road right now as you listen to me, those are just facts. And I think what part of what's happened in this country is that somehow we, perhaps as privileged folks, being white or coming from a certain economic status, there's this opinion that, oh my gosh, I have to feel embarrassed and terrible about this, and somehow I'm a lesser person. No, it's not about that. It's just about a recognition of our history. And the encouraging thing is that we keep moving forward. That's our state motto. That's the American way. That's why people are still trying to come to this country every single day for a better life, a better America, a better Wisconsin. Because despite our unseemly history in some parts, and let's acknowledge also there's some really great history in America where we've come together. There's great history of African-American Civil War battalions fighting for the Union, of black women advancing the space program, of white, black, and everything coming together to protect our country in our United States military. I'm not embarrassed to be an American. I'm proud to be an American. But that doesn't mean that we forget our history. Because when we remember our history, we learn from it. And we make a more perfect union. Not perfect, more perfect. And that's what I love about the United States of America. And that's why we have a chance to make it more perfect with our vote. Voting early starts now. Today, you can do it today. Come on back. Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
92.7 WMDX.
Cranberry juice, cranberry wine, cranberry brats, cranberry cream puffs. And excuse me, but my cranberry bread is ready. It's
Apparently.
cranberry season in Wisconsin.
I'd like to try one,
and we're
Terry.
the cranberry capital of not just the U.S., but our farmers also produce more than half of the world's cranberry supply. So can
Maybe
you guess
next year
which
I'll
state
go to the Wisconsin State Fair for the first time in my life.
New Jersey, Washington State,
Maybe we'll do a show down there.
The
You can come
answer
with.
coming up. Fall is harvest time, and you can see the machines rolling through the marshlands, which are flooded to help the cranberries float to the top. But it hasn't always been this easy. Back in the mid-1800s, the berries had to be picked by hand. It took another 100 years for the right equipment to be built to help with this harvest. Okay, so Wisconsin owns the cranberry capital title, but which state lost it to us? Massachusetts, which has been number 2 ever since. By the way, the cranberry is the official state fruit, making it a true slice of Wisconsin. I'm Terry Barr for the Civic Media Radio Network.
This is Gordy with John and Gordy in the morning on 92.7 WMDX. When you text into our show or any WMDX
Jeff Perry
program,
says,
know that our
cranberry
text
cream
line
puffs
is
was my
sponsored by
nickname in
Rocket
college.
Industrial. Package with less. Visit rocketindustrial.com and we'll be watching out
I can
for
neither
your text.
confirm nor deny.
The John and Gordy Show.
You know, if they say
Can't or
or
won't.
do anything out of step with Trump, they're in deep trouble. People were already thinking and acting as if they were living under an authoritarian regime. We are all just a little afraid, not you and me, because we're, ignorantly ballsy. and we'll be arrested and, hauled off into a...
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along with us. It is 9 before the hour of 1 o'clock. At the top of the hour, ABC and CBS News, depending upon which of our wonderful stations across Wisconsin you are listening to. And then coming up after that, a little news, weather, sports. And then you got the Maggie Dawn Show every afternoon from 2 until 4, Maggie Dawn across Wisconsin. At 4 o'clock, our friend and colleague Dominic Sylvia with the Dom Sylvia Show from 4 until 6. And then 6 until 8, it's Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. And apparently they have run plumb out of guests because they asked me to be on. And I'm thrilled, by the way. But I'm not sure. I mean, my God, he got Charo on. I mean, what am I going to do? Coochie, coochie, coo. I mean,
You should.
I can't top Charo.
You can try.
No, I would never try. But I'm very honored they asked me. So, join us tonight sometime after 6 o'clock, and I will be joining Pete Schwaba and Conrad, and we'll do a little talking.
They have Todd Michaels on, one of our fantastic producers, the voice of the network, if you hear, on the Civic Media Radio Network. That's Todd Michaels.
He's on tonight, too?
No, but they have him on often
All right.
because he actually has a TV show about ghost hunting.
I know that. Isn't that cool? We should get him on our show.
We should. We'll work on that.
It could be Todd and Todd, TNT.
Or have both of you on
on
Pete's show
on
and
Pete's
try and
show.
get another Todd. Get
Try
the
Todd.
triumvirate of Todds. Or the Todd trifecta.
That'd be fantastic. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the Nightlight Show tonight with Pete Schwaba. I will be on it, talking all things entertainment. And what a refreshing break from politics. Once in a while, and speaking of a refreshing break from politics, I'm very excited about tomorrow's show. I got to confirm this, I believe Brady Ewing will be on in hour 1 to talk a little sports and life. And then in hour 2, our old friend Kira Sabin will be on from 1 until 2. Kira is a life coach, a trained psychologist person. Whatever the title. I always forget her exact title.
Positivity psychologist,
That's
I think.
it. Thank you. Positivity psychologist. Because here's the deal, and Vice President Harris talked about it this week on the campaign trail. I don't know about you all, but I am getting burnt out. I'm getting stressed out. Any out you can imagine, I'm there. There's a lot of anxiety. And instead of us trying to be tough people and, oh, no, I'm fine, let's just admit it. None of us are doing particularly well right now.
We all need to take a deep breath.
Right?
Maybe a few.
So Kira's going to be in from 1 until 2 tomorrow, and we're going to talk about how we all get through the last week of the campaign cycle together. Doesn't matter who you're voting for. How do we get through this together? We're going to talk a little bit about mental health, talk about positivity, taking care of ourselves and each other, and in general, how you deal with anxiety. It's been a while since we spent time talking about mental health, and I don't want to let that slip. Because I think each of us are just like, I'll be so glad when the election is over. Unfortunately, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, Trigby talked about this earlier today. I think there is going to be some form of unrest no matter who legally wins the election. So unfortunately, it's not just going to be, November 5th or 6th and we're done here and everything goes back to normal. I think this will stretch out no matter who wins and well into January. I hope that's not the case. And again, I'm not trying to scare anybody or rile anybody up. It's just, people who are smarter than me are telling me things. So it's a good reminder to have Kira on tomorrow, to be here, someone who's bright, who's positive, who also keeps it real.
Absolutely.
That's the thing about Kira. She's not all sunshine and freckles. I don't think she doesn't even have any freckles. But she keeps it real. And so we'll probably take some calls. So if you're dealing with anxiety, if you want to know how to help your overall mental health, how to deal with family members, right? Thanksgiving's coming up next month. Yes, next month, although it's late in the month. And we've talked about this before with Kira. When you're going to be at a family event and you know that politics is going to come up and you know that you're going to be on the other side of the coin, how do you deal with people like that without it all going south? Tom, watching on YouTube, says, careful, Todd. If you show any weakness like psychotherapy, you'll be accused of being a liberal. Well, unfortunately, right, that's kind of true in some cases. But I think take the political labels out. There is certainly a stigma in our society against getting help and against admitting that we all need help.
There really is. It's unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate. And again, we'll leave you. I mean, we're getting up against the clock here. If you need help before tomorrow, by the way, 988. Just pick up your phone, rotary, punch, cell phone, and dial 988. That is the helpline for mental health. It's not just, I think it's a little bit of a stigma. Oh, that's the suicide prevention helpline. And they'll certainly talk with you if you're at that place. But if you're just feeling maybe not quote unquote suicidal or self-harming, but if you're like, I don't know where to turn to, I've got nobody to talk to. I got nobody. You do. And I've talked about this before this program. We'll bring it up tomorrow. Susan Simon, the great anchor at Channel 3 here in Madison, once told me, you can get through anything if you know you're not alone. You're not. None of us are. 988. Give them a call if you need help. We'll be here tomorrow. You're never alone with the Todd Allbaugh Show with Aaron Zomers, Kira Saban, maybe some Brady Ewing. Come on back tomorrow. Stay tuned for Maggie Dawn next. Wherever you're fighting for, wherever you believe in, do not give up. We're going to get through this together. Keep banging your drum.
Banging on your drum, and they will hear you.
There you go, everybody. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll see you mañana.
Adios.
Thanks. Bye-bye.